"You need to wait outside." That's what they told her. No questions, no glances that lasted long enough to wonder who she might be. No room for possibility. Just a black woman in a gray coat. And to them, that was enough. But what they didn't know was this. She didn't just belong here. She ran the damn system. And 5 minutes from now, Savannah Airport wouldn't just regret it. It would stop. Completely. Tell us where you're watching from. Because by the end of this story, you'll understand why silence can be the loudest power of all. The wind coming off the Atlantic that morning was sharp and honest. No pretending. The kind of air that didn't apologize for who it touched. Dr. Nadira Cole stepped out of her black sedan with no assistant, no press, no briefcase. Just a wool coat and a pair of black sneakers that had carried her through war rooms, data labs, and too many boardrooms where no one looked like her. She didn't need a red carpet. She was the system. Savannah Coastal Airport gleamed in front of her like a modern cathedral of polished stone and LED calm. She stood outside the main terminal a moment, eyes steady on the sign above. Priority entry, Tier 1, VIP corporate access. A sign she helped design. A system she built. She walked forward. Inside, the terminal was already humming. Travelers juggled coffee cups and boarding passes. A child cried in the distance. Businessmen mumbled into AirPods. The security queue for general boarding was long, but the Tier 1 lane stood nearly empty. Just a velvet rope, a glass gate, and a 24-year-old named Connor wearing a blazer 2 sizes too tight. He didn't look up at first. When he finally did, his eyes scanned her coat, her skin, her shoes. "Can I help you?" he asked, even though she was already holding her ID. "I'm accessing Tier 1 priority," she said calmly. "Federal clearance. You should see my name on the registry for today's site audit." Connor gave a slow blink. Then his lips pressed into the kind of smile that wasn't really a smile. "Do you have a boarding pass?" "No," she said. "As I mentioned, I'm not flying. I'm here for a systems audit." His fingers danced lazily across the keyboard. Then he shook his head with performative regret. "I'm not seeing anything under your name. If you don't have a boarding pass or a sponsor airline representative here with you, I can't let you through." Nadira pulled a second ID from her coat. A matte black badge with a silver chip and her name. Dr. Nadira Cole, Executive Override. Clearport Ethics Grid, Tier 1 Command Access. Skylink Southeast. Connor didn't even read past the second line. "This just says you work in tech," he muttered. "No," she said. "It says I run it." He snorted. She didn't move. Connor's smile turned clinical. "Look, you might be some admin with a fancy title, but without Delta or Frontier confirming you, I can't override protocol." Irony sat thick on the air. She was the protocol. Nadira stayed calm. Always. That was her armor. That was how she'd survived boardrooms full of men who called her too assertive for stating facts. That was how she got from cleaning avionics panels at 19 to designing one of the most critical ethics routing systems in the American aviation network. "I suggest you contact your supervisor," she said. He didn't. Instead, he hit a button beneath the desk. Security. A tall, pale security officer arrived 2 minutes later. Clean buzz cut, oversized belt, mid-50s. Name tag said Doug. "Problem here?" Doug asked, looking not at Nadira, but at Connor. "No problem," Nadira said, before Connor could speak. "I was just explaining I'm here under Tier 1 access." Doug's eyes finally landed on her. He didn't even try to hide the scan. Coat, bag, hands, face. It wasn't a safety check. It was a judgment. "You got ID?" She handed it to him. He looked, then looked again, but not with understanding, with suspicion. "Ma'am," Doug said slowly, "we're going to need you to step outside the secured area while we verify." Nadira stayed still. "This is my area." Doug shifted his weight. "Ma'am, don't make this difficult. Step outside, please," Connor added with forced patience. "We're just following protocol." Wrong again. Nadira turned and walked toward the glass exit doors. The cold outside slapped harder now, not because the temperature had dropped, but because humiliation made wind feel personal. She stood just beyond the threshold, watched as two white businessmen were waved through the Tier 1 lane without a glance. No badges, no questions, just a nod and a "Good morning, sir." No one noticed her. No one asked. No one imagined that the most powerful person in that terminal wasn't inside the lounge. She was outside, watching. She took out her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen for exactly 2 seconds. Then she dialed. "Operations Prime. Cole here. Confirm? Savannah, activate Sky Hold. Tier 1 ethics lockdown. Now." Click. That was it. No raised voice. No escalation. No dramatic threats. Just a call. 5 minutes from now, the glass would fog. The gates would freeze. And every flight linked to the 3 lowest performing ethics-compliant airlines would stall mid-clearance. She would not raise her voice, but the system would speak for her. From behind the glass, Connor sipped from his coffee and chuckled something to Doug, who nodded. They were proud, smug, satisfied that they'd done their job. They had no idea the countdown had already begun. No idea that the woman they dismissed held the final override key to the network they relied on to operate 112 flights across 4 airports. No idea that $780 million in routing credits were now frozen because they made a snap judgment based on shoes and skin. And Nadira? She just stood there, still, calm, holding her silence like a blade. Not to hurt, but to carve truth into a system that had always looked past her. The airport didn't know it yet, but this was the moment it would never forget her. Not her name, not her silence, not her power. The first thing to fail was the gate display. Flight 1814 to Charlotte flickered twice, then went black. The flight attendant standing near gate B4 tapped the screen like maybe it was frozen. It wasn't. It had been disconnected. 30 feet away, the radar technician inside the terminal's operations room noticed something strange. A red bar blinked on his Skylink dashboard, a Tier 1 ethics alert. He squinted, confused. That alert never showed up, not unless something had gone very, very wrong. Outside, Nadira stood perfectly still beneath the overhang, her breath visible in the cold morning light. She could see herself faintly in the glass, the distorted reflection of a woman everyone else had chosen to overlook. But now the system was responding, and it didn't overlook anything. Inside the terminal, Connor leaned against the podium with a coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. Doug had wandered back toward his post, his radio set to low, eyes scanning like a man who thought the morning's drama was over. It wasn't. Nadira's phone buzzed once in her pocket. Skyhold activation confirmed. Tier 1 lockdown. Savannah Coastal. Ethics trigger. Initial wave. Affected routes, 23. Routing credits frozen, 112 miles. That was just the beginning. In the control room, voices started to rise. "Why are we losing access to flight path synchronization?" one tech asked. "Did someone pull Tier 1 override?" The answer came before anyone could speculate. A second alert appeared. Clear port ethics grid. Override initiated authority. Cole, Nadira, master level clearance. The room went quiet. A supervisor whispered, "Someone call FAA compliance now." Meanwhile, Connor noticed the glitch on the digital display above his head. The words, "Access restricted, clear port protocol hold," appeared on the VIP lane panel, replacing the normal welcome message. He frowned. That wasn't supposed to happen. He glanced out toward the glass where Nadira still stood, unmoved. He followed the direction of her gaze, not to him, but through him. He suddenly felt small. Back inside the fast-track security queue, a white man in a tailored suit stepped forward, clearly irritated. "Excuse me," he said to Connor. "What's the holdup here? I have a 9:20 flight to DC." Connor hesitated. "There's a temporary systems error. Should be resolved soon." But it wasn't. because 3 more flights, including the 920 to DC, were now caught in the Skyhold web. Savannah wasn't the only airport affected. In Charleston, a warning buzzed across terminals that partner airlines flagged non-compliant on the Clearport Ethics Index were now on active hold. Boarding bridges were paused. Clearances were pulled. Staff didn't understand why, only that they couldn't override it. In Atlanta, a similar alert triggered at Hartsfield-Jackson. The airline operations manager picked up his secure line and called the FAA. "We've got a Category Red ethics lockdown. Is this a drill?" The FAA official on the other end said, "It's not a drill, and it's not a bug. It's a live Tier 1 protocol." Pause. "Dr. Cole has activated the Skyhold." The man dropped the phone back onto its receiver. "Who the hell did they piss off this time?" he muttered. At Savannah, Doug was the next to feel the shift. His radio buzzed. Dispatch was panicking. "Gate B4 locked. Flights to Raleigh and Tampa held. Command grid not responding. We're escalating to FAA." Doug tapped his earpiece. "What's the root of it?" A pause. Then a quiet, almost stunned voice replied, "Ethics override, from the top." Doug looked up slowly. His gaze found Nadira again, still standing there, watching. She hadn't flinched, hadn't shouted, but something had moved, and everyone was beginning to feel it. At Gate B3, a young airline supervisor tried refreshing her dashboard. Error messages stacked on top of each other. One of her colleagues leaned in. "I heard the ethics system flag this location." She looked at him. "For what?" He shrugged. "I don't know, but I heard someone important was mistreated. Then, really important." In the executive suite on the airport's upper floor, the regional director for operations burst into the room, waving a printout. "The Clearport grid just flagged us. Savannah, Charleston, and Raleigh are all showing red zones." The general manager took the sheet and scanned it. His face changed. "This is bad. What do we do?" "We find out who triggered it, and we fix it. Fast." But the problem wasn't the trigger. It was that they'd already ignored the warning signs. Because hours earlier, a memo had gone out to every executive operations lead in the Skylink Southeast network. Subject: Internal Audit. Ethics Observation Protocol. Unannounced. Please be advised that Dr. Nadira Cole may conduct live audits without formal notice. Staff are expected to treat all guests with respect, regardless of appearance or perceived status. Ethics ratings will be weighted accordingly. Immediate compliance required. But no one had shared the memo with Connor, or Doug, or anyone on the morning shift because they didn't think it mattered. Until now. Doug stepped outside into the cold. He walked up to Nadira slowly, his eyes no longer dismissive, just uncertain. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "would you like to come back inside?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "No, thank you. I didn't mean any disrespect," he added, awkward. "That," Nadira said, finally turning toward him, "is the problem." Doug opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He nodded once, stepped back, and returned inside. Inside the operations floor, panic was setting in. Live feed from the FAA confirmed it. 112 flights suspended. $780 million in routing credits frozen. 3 airlines flagged non-compliant and locked out of Clearport until further review. And one name on every screen: Cole, Nadira. Override authority, final. On the tarmac, planes sat idle. Passengers grew restless. Airline reps called up the chain of command. Screens went blank, replaced with looping messages. "Flight pending ethics verification. Please stand by." Connor stood paralyzed behind the podium, watching it all unravel. He looked over at the display, at the travelers growing impatient, at the growing line of executives appearing in the terminal like ants after a dropped sandwich, and then back at the woman outside, Dr. Nadira Cole, the woman he'd dismissed. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't pushed back. She had let the system speak for her, and it was screaming now. The control room phones rang off the hook. FAA compliance officers began deploying regional investigators. A spokesperson drafted a preliminary public statement. Somewhere, inside a boardroom hundreds of miles away, a CEO was being briefed. And they weren't happy. Outside, Nadira's phone buzzed once more. FAA compliance team requesting emergency video briefing. Subject, Skyhold escalation, Savannah. She didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she turned to the glass and watched her own reflection. Tired eyes, sharp jaw, no makeup, no mask. This wasn't revenge. This was the consequence of being underestimated one time too many. And the system? It had just started learning its lesson. The doors to conference room C slammed open so hard that the team inside jumped. Lisa Graham, Assistant Director of Airport Operations, entered first, phone in one hand, a printed document in the other, her short heels striking the tile like punctuation marks. "I need everyone to look at this," she snapped, voice tight with controlled panic. A room full of middle managers and airline liaisons turned toward her. The head of customer experience raised an eyebrow. "Lisa, what?" "Read the date on this memo," she said, slapping the page down on the table. Someone picked it up. Subject, Internal Ethics Audit. High Alert Tier 1. Do not disclose. Dr. Nadira Cole will be conducting anonymous site visits at random. Do not assume anyone's status by appearance. All guests, regardless of attire or identity, must be treated with full respect and compliance. These visits may impact ethics scores directly tied to FAA clearances and routing privileges. Date, 3 days ago, and no one had passed it down. The room went silent. Meanwhile, downstairs in the main terminal, Connor was standing frozen behind the Tier 1 podium, staring at the display board that still read, "Access locked. Ethics protocol active." He hadn't spoken in almost 10 minutes. Doug, the security officer, was pacing slowly nearby, his radio still hissing with half-clear transmissions. Neither of them said it out loud, but the realization was setting in heavy. They weren't the victims of a glitch. They were the cause of a protocol. And the woman standing outside, coat zipped to her chin, arms still tucked calmly behind her back, hadn't moved at all. The quiet was worse than shouting. Upstairs, Lisa turned to face the room. "Here's the situation. Dr. Cole didn't just get mistreated. She got dismissed, and because of that, we're now flagged red across 3 nodes in Clearport. 112 flights are suspended, and 4 airports have halted cooperation." She looked around the room, daring someone to argue. Who on morning shift received this memo? No one raised their hand. Exactly. Lisa pointed at the screen where the current status showed in red bars and blinking alerts. Savannah, red, confirmed Tier 1 violation. Charleston, yellow, pending ethics verification. Raleigh, red, ethics score below threshold. 3 days ago, this memo should have gone to every staff lead, including hospitality, ground crew, airline desk, and security. Who signed off on that? Someone mumbled, "Operations manager, I think." "Where is he?" "Still on vacation. Back Monday." Lisa let out a slow breath through her nose. Of course. Down on the concourse, a flight to Tampa was now officially canceled. The airline rep at the gate tried to offer vague apologies to angry travelers. Nadira heard murmurs from across the glass. Phrases like, "technical audit," "compliance issue," and "no timeline yet." None of it mentioned her name, which was fine. She didn't need the credit. She needed the industry to learn. Inside the fast-track lane, Connor finally broke his silence. "Do you think she's recording all this?" Doug gave him a tired look. "I think we're way past worrying about cameras, kid." Connor swallowed. "I didn't know who she was." "That," Doug muttered, "is the whole point." In the staff break room, 2 custodial workers watched the blinking alerts on the screen mounted above the microwave. "She did that?" one asked, wide-eyed. The other nodded slowly. "I think so." Quiet lady, gray coat. She stood there like she already knew they'd mess up. Do you know who she is? Don't need to. I know what she did. They stood in silence a moment. Then one of them added, "About damn time somebody checked them." Meanwhile, Lisa stood in front of the executive panel for the airport board. She's activated the Skyhold protocol. That's not just a local lockout. It ties directly into federal compliance scores and funding. If we stay flagged red past 48 hours, we're looking at cascading effects, grant freezes, loss of federal operations routing, even loss of code share agreements with international terminals. The director of regional airline relations finally spoke. "What's our play?" Lisa didn't flinch. "Our play is to fix what we broke." In the hallway just outside the conference room, a younger staffer, Pamela, was listening from around the corner. She had a clipboard clutched tight to her chest and her phone half hidden in her blazer pocket. She had seen what happened earlier. She'd watched Nadira get brushed off, heard Connor's condescending tone, seen Doug step forward like Nadira was a threat. She had filmed 30 seconds of it. Not for clout, not to leak, just to have proof. And now she wasn't sure if keeping quiet was protecting her job or protecting the problem. Back outside, the cold wind tugged at the hem of Nadira's coat. Her phone buzzed. Message from FAA Ethics Council Skyhold incident officially recorded. Advisory committee requesting full escalation report from Dr. Cole within 24 hours. She didn't answer right away. Her fingers hovered over the screen, then locked it again. Inside, the doors parted. Clarice, the janitorial team lead, stepped out quietly with a small tray. On it, a bottle of water and a warm cloth. She said nothing as she approached. "Miss Cole," she said gently, "if you don't mind, this water's cold, but I figured you might be thirsty." Nadira looked at her, eyes softening just slightly. Clarice added, her voice low, "Some of us saw. We always see. We just don't always have the power to do something." "You did now?" Nadira replied quietly. Clarice gave a nod, then added with a wry smile, "They told me not to be in the terminal right now, so I came out here instead." Nadira took the water, not because she needed it, but because she respected the gesture. That's what made the difference. Back in the terminal, a message pinged across the internal staff portal. From Dr. Nadira Cole to all staff, Savannah Coastal Terminal. Today was not about punishment. It was about exposure. When you make assumptions about people based on how they look, you risk more than your credibility. You risk the foundation of everything we're supposed to stand for. I didn't come to see if the system worked. I came to see if you believed in it when no one told you to. The answer was clear. You didn't, but you still can, because protocol doesn't build culture. People do. At the front desk, Connor read the message twice. Doug stepped behind him and said nothing. For the first time that day, Connor looked up and didn't see himself as a gatekeeper. He saw himself as the reason the gate stayed locked. Outside, Nadira walked slowly along the terminal windows, not toward the doors, just alongside them, watching. Clarice stayed behind her, pushing her cart. Inside, screens were flashing yellow, some turning green, one terminal at a time, one attitude at a time. The conference room at the FAA's Southeastern Division headquarters wasn't made for silence, but that morning, it held plenty of it. 5 officials sat at the oval table. Behind them, 2 compliance investigators reviewed screens mounted to the far wall, each playing security footage from different angles inside Savannah Coastal Airport. In the center, a still frame of Dr. Nadira Cole, gray coat, calm expression, standing just outside the glass doors. No shouting, no scene, just presence. Unbothered, unreadable. Then came the audio. "Connor, you might be some admin with a fancy title, but I can't override protocol." Nadira, "I suggest you contact your supervisor." Connor laughs. "You don't look like you're tier 1. Doug, security. "You're going to need to step outside, ma'am." Pause. Nadira, "This is my area." Another pause. Then silence as she turns and calmly walks away. "What's the timestamp?" one official asked. 6:43 a.m., said the lead investigator. "That's 4 minutes before Skyhold went live." The room shifted. Eyes met across the table. No one said it out loud, but the implication was clear. She didn't react. She responded, and the system obeyed her. Back at Savannah, inside the airport's admin office, Lisa Graham was still coordinating with ground operations, now managing live reroutes and refund protocols for passengers caught in the freeze. Her inbox had 92 unread messages. 3 of them were flagged high priority from FA Regional. She opened the most recent one. Subject: FAA Ethics Investigation, Savannah Coastal. Confirm presence of Clearport audit footage. Submit all internal comms and personnel shift records for past 72 hours. Dr. Cole's audit status is now under congressional review. Escalation level high. Lisa sat back, exhaled through her teeth. This was bigger than just a PR nightmare. This was about to become policy. Outside, Nadira stood with her back to the sun now rising behind the tarmac. Her coat caught the morning light just barely. She hadn't moved since Clarice brought her the water. She didn't need to. The system was still moving. And now, so was Washington. Back inside the airport terminal, Connor sat behind the VIP podium, still on shift, though it felt pointless now. The gate was locked, the display still flashing ethics protocols, and none of the usual travelers had dared to approach. Pamela, the intern, stood a few feet behind him. She wasn't wearing her usual nervous expression. Today, she looked more aware, a little braver. She stepped closer. "You ever wonder," she said quietly, "what happens if someone posts the footage?" Connor blinked. "What footage?" She didn't answer, but the look she gave him said everything. In Atlanta, at FAA Ethics Division, the Director of Ethics Compliance scrolled through a transcript of the audit memo Dr. Cole had submitted to regional partners 72 hours before the visit. He highlighted 2 lines in red. All staff must be briefed immediately upon memo receipt. Failure to comply may result in real-time Skyhold activation. No one at Savannah had done that. No one had even acknowledged the email internally. Instead, they'd flagged it as low-priority internal memo. The director leaned back and muttered. They walked right into it. Meanwhile, Clarice, the janitorial lead, was back inside now, pushing her cart along Concourse B. She passed a group of junior staff, whispering near the window. "You think she really meant for this to go public?" "I don't know," one said. "She hasn't said a word since it started." Another nodded toward the far glass. "She doesn't need to. That was the whole point." Clarice didn't interrupt, but as she passed them, one of the younger agents offered her a soft smile. For the first time in years, someone looked at her like she wasn't invisible. Upstairs, a private FAA Zoom session began. 6 small boxes popped onto screen. In the center, Dr. Nadira Cole. She was sitting in a minimalist office. Clean walls, 1 window behind her, no background noise. She wore a black blouse, no jewelry. Her hair was pinned back, simple and strong. "Good morning," she said. The FAA director nodded. "Dr. Cole, thank you for joining us." She nodded once. "We've reviewed the footage. We've reviewed the routing freezes. We've reviewed the Skyhold documentation. Your authority checks out, of course." Nadira didn't smile. She didn't blink more than necessary. "But we'd like to ask," he continued, "was your response proportionate?" She paused, then, "Is a warning ever enough when the people in charge don't believe you matter?" No one answered. She continued, her voice even. "I gave them a memo. I gave them clarity. And still, I was told to wait outside. Not because of a lack of credentials, but because of an assumption. And when assumptions go unchecked, systems fail." Another pause. "This wasn't retaliation," she said. "It was enforcement." Silence. Then the director spoke. Understood. Back at Savannah, Doug, the security officer, was reviewing the footage on his own phone now. Not the official FAA reel, the one Pamela had taken. He didn't know she'd filmed it until she texted it to his city-issued number with one line. "This is what I saw." He watched it all. Watched himself. Watched the way he stood too tall, spoke too cold. Watched Nadira not flinch. His hand dropped from his chin. He didn't like what he saw. And the worst part? He wasn't surprised. By 11:04 a.m., the FAA released its preliminary statement to media. Today, an ethics override protocol was triggered under lawful authority by Dr. Nadira Cole, in her capacity as Master Clearance Officer of Clearport Grid Systems. FAA respects her authority, and we are now reviewing implementation failures at a local level. The Sky Dignity Protocol, proposed by Dr. Cole in 2018, is being reviewed for nationwide adoption. The internet got it 5 minutes later. By 11:15, hashtags began trending. She stood still. Clear Port Cole, #Tier 1. Silence. By 11:43 a.m., the CEO of Frontier Atlantic issued a statement acknowledging the role of their staff in the incident and offering public support for Dr. Cole's important wake-up call. The same CEO was forced to resign by shareholders that night on live television. Inside the terminal, Clarice stood by the restroom hallway, watching the news stream scroll across the lounge TV. Nadira's face was on the screen now, not from the confrontation, from a keynote years earlier, where she'd spoken about invisible gatekeeping. Pamela stood next to her. "I didn't think she'd say anything," Pamela whispered. "She didn't," Clarice said. "She didn't need to." Nadira closed her laptop as the FAA meeting ended. She exhaled through her nose. Not relief, just gravity. This wasn't over, but it had started. Really started. And this time, they were watching. When the Skyhold protocol activated, most airports across the southeast were still rubbing the sleep from their eyes. But at Savannah Coastal, the awakening came much harder and much faster. By noon, Clarice had already been approached 3 times by junior staff. Not with mops or questions about supply closets, but with things like, "Hey, were you here when Dr. Cole was asked to wait outside? Did she say anything before the whole system froze?" She didn't yell or anything, right? Clarice never answered in full. She'd simply nod, press the mop forward, and leave them to sit with their own shame. The janitor had been invisible for years. Now, suddenly, she was the one people wanted insight from. Funny how silence gains volume when systems collapse. Meanwhile, Pamela had posted the 9-second clip she filmed. Not the whole thing, just the moment where Doug and Connor blocked Nadira from entering. She captioned it, "This is what happens when you don't know who's watching. Clearport. Never she stood still. Skyhold." It blew up. 1.3 million views in 2 hours. Commenters were furious. Not just about the mistreatment, but about how normal it looked. She didn't even raise her voice. This is how systemic bias really looks. Quiet, confident men doing the wrong thing with full belief they're right. This isn't just one airport. This is every gate, every day. Inside the admin office, Doug sat across from the HR rep. He didn't speak for a while, just stared down at the printed transcript of what he said to Nadira that morning. "You're going to need to step outside, ma'am." It sounded even worse on paper. "I didn't mean it to sound like that," Doug muttered finally. The HR rep didn't flinch. "How did you mean it?" Doug opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't know anymore. He had followed a gut instinct that had never been challenged. Until now. At 1:13 p.m., Savannah Coastal's internal Slack server lit up. "Alert! FAA emergency audit underway. All supervisors to report to Concourse C at 1:30 p.m. This includes admin, operations, security, VIP services, and custodial leads." Clarice received the ping on her loaner tablet. She looked down at it, then slowly wiped her hands on her apron. Pamela caught her glance and raised her eyebrows. "Are you going?" Clarice didn't answer. She was already rolling her cart away. In Concourse C, Lisa Graham stood at the front of a semicircle of folding chairs. Next to her was an FAA ethics investigator and a man wearing a simple gray button-up with no badge, just a clipboard and eyes that seemed to see through people. "We're not here to punish," the man began. "We're here to observe what kind of culture allowed this to happen." He held up a photo. It wasn't of Nadira. It was of Connor, looking smug, arms crossed, mouth open mid-sentence. "This is what Dr. Cole saw," he said. "What did she feel?" No one answered. Then Clarice, standing at the back, spoke. "Unwelcome," she said quietly. "Dismissed before she even entered the room." Heads turned. The clipboard man didn't react, just nodded. "Anyone else?" Pamela raised her hand. She was calm, but she looked like someone who's been through this before. The room sat in silence again, this time more personal. The FAA team then played clips. Split screen, time-stamped, color-coded. Left. Nadira's arrival and denial at the entrance. Right. The moment Skyhold triggered. Terminals flashing, airline reroutes starting, phones buzzing across 4 airports. Then came the worst clip. A customer in line at VIP turning to her husband and saying, "They always try to sneak in like they're important. Should have known." Gasps. Real, audible gasps. Connor, watching from the back, put his hand over his face. Doug walked out of the room. In Washington, Nadira sat in a dimly lit strategy room, across from a panel of 5 civil rights observers, 2 transportation secretaries, and a woman representing the National Aviation Workforce Initiative. She had just been asked, "What would you implement if the FAA gave you authority for 1 week?" Nadira didn't blink. "I'd pass the Sky Dignity Protocol. Immediately." And what would that require? Mandatory culture audits, anonymous review systems, diversity-neutral promotion metrics, passenger ethics scores, staff behavior audits, annual blind evaluations of leadership conduct. One panelist raised an eyebrow. "That sounds aggressive." Nadira leaned forward slightly. "If discrimination were gentle, we wouldn't still be having this conversation." At 3:20 p.m., Savannah Coastal's internal terminal dashboard turned red. An alert read, "Notice, ethics violation flag. Your airport has been marked under review by the Clearport Grid. Cooperation with FAA and Clearport auditors is now a condition of continued operations." The terminal went quiet. Even TSA agents stopped scanning. Everyone read the words. Everyone saw the name in the footer, Dr. Nadira Cole, Master Authority, Tier 1. And no one laughed this time. Connor sat on the back steps behind the admin building. Pamela walked out, holding 2 water bottles. She sat beside him without asking and handed him one. "You okay?" "No." "You going to quit?" He shook his head. "Not yet." "You know what I've been thinking?" she said. "What?" "I've never seen anyone hold power like that without raising their voice." Connor nodded slowly. "That's what scared me most, honestly." Pamela looked at him. "You ever think maybe you were scared? Because she wasn't?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. In the evening, Clarice got a new badge, issued by FAA on behalf of Clearport. It read, "Cultural Steward, Savannah Coastal Terminal Tier 3 Audit Liaison Reporting Access." Direct. She stared at it in the locker room mirror. For the first time in 23 years, someone had trusted her judgment. That night, news outlets across the country ran headlines. Dr. Nadira Cole's one call exposes 780 miles culture crisis. Airport bias goes viral. Skyhold protocol unleashed. FAA faces backlash for failing to adopt Sky Dignity earlier. Meanwhile, a quiet ripple began behind the scenes. 3 airlines, fearing additional freezes, requested emergency Clearport ethics reevaluation, and 4 airport CEOs reached out to Nadira directly. One message read, "We're not proud of what happened, but we want to be part of what happens next." Nadira closed her laptop. She didn't cry. She didn't sigh. She didn't even smile. She just looked at the list of people now asking her to lead and quietly whispered, "Let's begin." Inside the offices of Apex Global Partners, one of the largest investment firms backing regional airports and airline alliances, the phones were ringing non-stop. A young analyst stormed into the boardroom holding a printed report. "You're going to want to see this," she said, breathless. Fair Sky lost 11.2% in after-hours trading. That's a $314 million drop. The room went silent. She flipped the page. And the ethics score downgrade from Clearport just triggered an automatic suspension clause in 4 ESG funds. If this isn't reversed in 48 hours, we're looking at $780 million in frozen capital. One of the partners finally spoke. "Who the hell is Nadira Cole?" Nobody answered. 7:44 a.m. Frontier Atlantic HQ CEO Robert Kern was pacing his glass office. His PR chief had just left after showing him the social media dashboard. #Clearport Cole was trending in 7 countries. His own face had been deep-faked into memes, calling him CEO of ignorance. And investors were demanding a response. But the kicker? The footage of him laughing off Nadira's Sky Dignity proposal back in 2018 had resurfaced. He poured a double scotch and watched it again on mute. He couldn't even deny it. He looked smug, dismissive, and out of touch. There was a knock at his door. "Board meeting, now," said his assistant. "It's not optional." 8:12 a.m. Washington, D.C. Nadira's inbox pinged. Subject line: Urgent. Emergency compliance meeting. Closed door. She didn't flinch. She already knew what was coming. Within the hour, she was in a secure federal room again, but this time with 2 FAA commissioners, 3 Senate staffers, and a legal rep from Clearport. "Dr. Cole," one of them began, "we need to understand the financial blowback from Skyhold's activation." Nadira nodded. "We estimated it," she said calmly. "The risk models were in my original Sky Dignity proposal. They were ignored." The legal rep jumped in. "It's not about legality, it's about optics." She looked him dead in the eye. "Then perhaps those worried about optics should have treated me with dignity when I walked into an airport I helped modernize." Silence again. This time, no one interrupted her. 9 a.m. Fair Sky. Airlines shareholder call. A voice echoed across thousands of speakers and Zoom tiles. "This is an emergency meeting of shareholders regarding the recent ethical breach involving Savannah Coastal and Dr. Nadira Cole." The chairwoman continued. "Due to the company's failure to respond appropriately and the financial fallout resulting in a 9.7% drop in stock price, the board is now voting on the immediate removal of CEO Alan Prescott." Prescott, seated awkwardly in his home office, tried to interject. "Wait, I've issued a statement. I've apologized publicly. I've even contacted Dr. Cole's team." Too late. The vote was already in, 87% in favor of removal, effective immediately. Prescott's camera shut off. Just like that. A shareholder chuckled bitterly. One woman stood still and toppled a CEO without saying a word. 10:47 a.m. Savannah Coastal. Break room. Clarice sat by herself, scrolling her phone. She paused at a live stream headline. FAA emergency hearings to address Skyhold fallout. Will Nadira Cole testify? Pamela walked in holding 2 coffees. She handed Clarice one. "Word is she's flying in tomorrow," Pamela whispered, "but not commercial, government jet." Clarice chuckled. "Guess they learned their lesson." Pamela hesitated. "You think she'll come back through here?" Clarice looked up. "If she does, we better hope we're different by then." 12:00 p.m. FAA press conference. The room was packed. Journalists, analysts, staffers. The podium bore the seal of the Federal Aviation Administration. An FAA official stepped forward. Due to repeated patterns of racial and class-based discrimination and a failure of internal ethics enforcement, The FAA is now in direct talks with Dr. Nadira Cole regarding industry-wide adoption of her Sky Dignity protocol. Murmurs spread across the room. Additionally, the official continued, Dr. Cole has accepted an advisory position overseeing airport ethics compliance for a temporary federal term. One reporter shot her hand up. Does this mean she controls Skyhold activations now? The official didn't hesitate. Dr. Cole has always controlled them. We're just catching up. 2:30 p.m. Back at Nadira's home office, Nadira stood by the window, watching the wind pass through the trees. Her phone buzzed again. Another media request, another boardroom invitation, another apology letter from yet another CEO. But she ignored them all. She opened a drawer and pulled out the first draft of her Sky Dignity protocol, the one she had sent 5 years ago to over 70 airports. Only 6 responded. Only one, Savannah Coastal, marked it non-priority. She smiled softly, not out of spite, out of clarity. The world had changed in 48 hours, but she hadn't. 4:12 p.m. A quiet call. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She picked up. Dr. Cole, this is Daniel Price, board chair at Eastern Horizons Group. We'd like to formally request a sit-down with you regarding an ethics restructuring. You'd have complete authority and a blank check. She didn't respond right away. We're not asking for forgiveness, he added. We're asking for a future. Nadira's voice was low, even. Then show me how you treat your least visible employee. Click. She didn't wait for a response. 6:00 p.m. MSNBC Interview Special. A primetime segment aired across national television. On one side of the screen, Nadira's calm face, filmed live from her office. On the other, news clips of the Skyhold activation, the frozen terminals, the CEO firings. The anchor asked, Dr. Cole, did you know this one act would cause a $780 million disruption to the industry? Nadira smiled lightly. That wasn't disruption, that was correction. And what's your message to the CEOs in boardrooms watching this? Her answer was simple. The next time you build systems, ask yourself if they still work when the person standing in front of them doesn't look like you. The U.S. Capitol was already buzzing by 8 a.m., but outside the Dirksen Senate office building, it felt electric. The lines stretched around the block. Journalists, lobbyists, aviation staffers, interns, all trying to squeeze into one hearing room. Inside, seated calmly at the front table, was Dr. Nadira Cole. She wore a muted charcoal blazer, her hair pulled into a neat twist. No designer accessories, no makeup statement. Just poise, silence, strength. No PR agent, no lawyer beside her. She didn't need them. At exactly 9:00 a.m., Senator Margaret Lyle brought the gavel down. This session will now come to order, she announced. We're here to investigate the federal ramifications of the Skyhold Protocol and the broader failures of aviation ethics. Dr. Nadira Cole is our primary witness. Camera shutters fired like gunshots. Nadira leaned into the microphone. Good morning. The room, large and polished with brass accents, fell quiet. She continued, Let me be clear from the start. What happened at Savannah Coastal was not a one-time mistake. It was business as usual, just caught on video for once. A ripple moved through the crowd. Senator Lyle blinked. Dr. Cole, can you clarify what Skyhold is for the record? Nadira nodded. Skyhold is a real-time override system tied to the Clearport ethics grid. When passenger dignity thresholds are violated, not just once, but repeatedly, the system flags it. If the threshold crosses the federal minimum, Skyhold activates. Flights pause, terminals freeze, partner operations halt, until an ethics re-audit clears them. So it's like pulling the emergency brake? Nadira looked straight at her. If the brake is triggered not by fire or tech failure, but by people treating other people like less than human, yes. Senator David Holt, seated 2 chairs down, cleared his throat. Dr. Cole, Skyhold locked down 112 flights. Over $780 million in logistical disruption. Why not just file a complaint? Nadira didn't flinch. Because complaints go ignored, but ethics violations, when tracked, time-stamped, and exposed, can't be brushed aside. You froze terminals over an attitude? She didn't raise her voice. Over a pattern, over hundreds of "you don't belong here" moments that build up until the system itself becomes the threat. That silenced the room. Senator Lyle picked up a slim document. You submitted a proposal 5 years ago called the Sky Dignity Protocol. It was declined by over 70 airports. Nadira nodded. Yes. And yet you built Skyhold anyway? I did. As insurance, in case the system refused to save itself. A pause. Then Lyle asked, "Do you believe the proposal was rejected because of your race?" Nadira looked directly at her. I believe I was seen as a disruption. An outsider asking uncomfortable questions. That tends to happen when your identity doesn't match the power structure. In the second row, Clarice and Pamela sat stiffly, watching every second. Clarice whispered, "She's got them on defense," without raising her voice once. Pamela grinned. "She's speaking like she wrote the future and they're just catching up." Senator Luis Romero took the mic next. Dr. Cole, can you outline what Sky Dignity would do if enacted federally? Nadira pulled out a small booklet. 4 pillars, she began. 1. Mandatory ethics certification for all airport staff and contractors. 2. Public disclosure of ethics scores for every terminal and airline. 3. Real-time violation tracking with audit flags tied to biometric systems. 4. The Passenger Rights Index, a live database ensuring no one is targeted based on race, disability, gender, or economic class. Romero nodded slowly. And how would it be enforced? Via Clearport, she replied, with a third-party oversight board. Infractions would be logged, and consistent abuse would trigger Skyhold again, not as punishment, but as correction. A staffer behind Romero whispered, "It's like GDPR, but for how humans treat each other." Senator Holt leaned in again. "Has Skyhold ever been misused?" "No," Nadira said firmly. "It has multi-layer verification. No one can trigger it impulsively, not even me. So it's more disciplined than most people," he murmured. She nodded once. "That's the idea." Senator Lyle glanced around the panel. "Dr. Cole, we've received support letters from over 40 organizations, civil rights coalitions, veteran alliances, disability advocates. Are you prepared to lead the rollout of Sky Dignity across the industry?" Nadira's voice didn't change. "Yes, but only if the oversight is real, not symbolic. And you're willing to work with the same airline executives who ignored you." "I'm willing to work with anyone who's ready to listen more than they talk." Lyle looked at her for a moment, then turned to the rest of the committee. "In light of the testimony and the documented impact of Skyhold, I motion that this committee recommend federal adoption of the Sky Dignity Protocol, effective immediately." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then, murmurs, claps, gasps. But Nadira didn't move. She had seen this moment before, not in a dream, but in every late night spent rewriting policy drafts no one ever opened. Outside, the hallway was already filling with reporters, microphones, live feeds, TikTokers, editorial boards, corporate lobbyists with shifting agendas. Someone yelled, "Dr. Cole, how do you respond to CEOs saying this will cripple operations?" She paused on the stairs. "What's been crippled," she said clearly, "is trust. And it was dying long before Skyhold paused anything." "Are you planning to join the FAA permanently?" "No." "Then what next?" Nadira looked ahead, where Pamela and Clarice were waiting by the security line, now empty. She smiled gently. "Next, we change how people enter spaces and how they're treated once they're inside." That night, every major network ran a headline variation of the same sentence. She didn't raise her voice. she rewrote the rules. And the story, like the woman behind it, wasn't going away. Dr. Nadira Cole wasn't one to gloat. Even when the headlines lit up like a thunderstorm across every major outlet, even when clips from the hearing trended on every platform, even when the Sky Dignity Protocol was officially adopted into federal aviation policy within 48 hours, she didn't celebrate. She worked. The morning after the Senate hearing, Nadira sat alone at Gate C-12 of Union Air's Washington terminal, the same one where she'd once been denied entry, mocked by staff, and told to wait outside. This time, no one dared say a word. She wasn't flying anywhere. She was just watching. She took in the gate agents, the cleaning crews, the customer service desk. Their faces were tighter now, not scared, but alert. There was no "ma'am" laced with sarcasm anymore. No sighs when passengers with accents walked up. No slow-motion racism hidden under smiling service. The air felt changed. Behind her, a security officer approached. "Dr. Cole, they're ready for you upstairs." She nodded and rose. 20 minutes later, she entered the SkyGrid Ethics Command Center, a windowless, high-security suite at the heart of the Clearport Coordination Floor. On 3 wall-to-wall screens, real-time data flowed across dozens of major airports. Ethics flag rates, passenger complaints, behavioral scoring, resolution rates, biometric triggers. It looked like an air traffic control room for dignity. Clarisse was already there, tapping away on a tablet. "Morning, boss." Nadira raised an eyebrow. "Don't call me that. You're literally the only one who knows how to run this interface." Nadira gave her a look. "Still not a boss?" Pamela entered behind her. "I printed out the first 10 requests for partnership implementation. JFK, LAX, Denver, Toronto, and 1 wild card, Dubai." Nadira scanned the forms. All of them, airports that had once rejected her protocol, were now lining up to be early adopters. "I want a review panel formed. 3 civilian passengers, 1 disability advocate, and 1 child of color from each airport. They don't get to implement this without the people they ignored," she said. Pamela nodded. "Already ahead of you." Nadira stepped closer to the main terminal feed. One section flashed yellow. "Hartsfield-Jackson, Gate A22, behavior flag pending." Clarisse tapped in. Gate agent raised her voice at a woman using a cane. "Escalation pending. Mark it for real-time observation. I want to know what gets said, how it's resolved, and whether it gets swept under. If it does, we re-trigger partial audit." Pamela whistled low. "You're not just keeping the system running, you're turning it into a live mirror." Nadira nodded. "That's the whole point. If people knew they were being watched by fairness, maybe they'd act like it matters." By noon, news of the system's first day had gone public. One blog called it Minority Report for Morals. Another conservative outlet dubbed it woke surveillance. But passengers didn't seem to care about the politics. They cared about the results. By 4 p.m., 3 incidents had been resolved in under 10 minutes. Apologies issued, passengers offered upgrades or support, not because of PR pressure, but because the system was watching. And so was the public. That evening, Nadira walked the concourse at Atlanta's airport, unescorted. Not one person stopped her for a selfie. Not one staff member gave her a look of suspicion. A young Latina flight attendant paused as Nadira passed. Her badge said Marisa. She swallowed hard. "Dr. Cole?" Nadira stopped. Marisa stepped closer, voice trembling slightly. "My cousin was one of the people who used to clean your hotel in Savannah. She watched your hearing 3 times. She said she never thought someone like her mattered in a system like this." Nadira looked into her eyes. "She was wrong, but I'm glad she knows now. I'm trying to do it better," Marisa whispered. "I believe you." Nadira walked on, heart unexpectedly tight. That night, her private terminal lounge at Union Air stayed empty, quiet. Her assistant had booked it for her to decompress. She didn't. Instead, she pulled out her laptop and opened the Clearport dashboard. The ethics grid had lit up again, not in warning, in compliance. Terminal after terminal showed green status. Flight crews were logging interactions voluntarily. Complaints had dropped by 17% in less than 36 hours, even higher in cities with diverse staff populations. At exactly 9:13 p.m., her phone buzzed. It was a direct message from the CEO of North Star Airlines, the same executive who had once told her, "Ethics are just marketing fluff." Requesting full onboarding session for Sky Dignity. We were wrong. Nadira stared at the screen for a long time. Then she typed, "Only if your entire leadership team sits through the protocol as passengers first." There was a pause. "Agreed. When do we start?" By the end of that week, 4 airline CEOs had made public commitments to integrate the system. Nadira didn't attend the press conferences. She let the airports and the people take center stage. She'd already had her moment at the mic. Now, it was the system's job to speak louder. The following Monday, she was invited back to Capitol Hill, this time, not for questioning, for acknowledgement. Senator Lyle stepped up to the podium, reading from a resolution. In light of Dr. Nadira Cole's contribution to federal aviation reform, the United States Transportation Committee formally recognizes Sky Dignity as the most effective post-pandemic passenger equity initiative in the country. A standing ovation followed. But Nadira didn't rise from her seat. She looked to the second row where Clarice and Pamela sat, grinning, clapping, proud. Then she looked down at her own hands. This wasn't about a name. This was about every silent moment of disrespect passengers had endured for decades. And finally, those moments had consequence. As she exited the building, a reporter rushed to catch up. "Dr. Cole, what would you say to people who still think this is overreach?" She didn't break stride. "I'd say they've confused silence with order, and dignity with inconvenience." "Are you finished?" She paused at the steps. "No, we've just started the audit." It was just past 6 a.m. when the notification hit every major aviation executive's inbox. Subject line: Federal Aviation Ethics Compliance Update, Immediate Action Required. Inside the encrypted file was a single statement. Effective immediately, airlines operating within the U.S. must integrate the Sky Dignity Protocol into all terminals and crew operations within 45 days. Failure to comply will result in the suspension of ethics certifications and federal contract eligibility. At Delta, American, and SkyNova headquarters, panic moved faster than the caffeine. Boardrooms lit up. Some CEOs called it a data coup. Others muttered about overreach, but none could ignore it, especially not after what happened next. At 8:15 a.m., Skyhold triggered again, this time on a United Express flight preparing to leave Houston. A black woman in a wheelchair had been told she'd need to wait until last, despite having a first-class seat. The gate agent had smirked. A supervisor had said it was procedure. But the system didn't care about excuses anymore. Within 90 seconds, the airline's ethics score dropped below federal compliance. Within 5 minutes, 6 flights linked to that terminal were suspended. And within the hour, 22.5 Ms in federal payment clearances were frozen, all tied to that airport's ethics grade. Every screen in the Clearport control hub turned red. Pamela looked up from the data stream. "We've got live footage and a passenger-recorded clip confirming the violation. You want to suppress the footage?" Nadira didn't even blink. "No, let it run. People deserve to see what the system is correcting." Clarice raised an eyebrow. "You sure? This could cost them their LAX routes." "That's the point," Nadira said quietly. "It's supposed to hurt until they change." That afternoon, CNN broke the story. Passenger justice system freezes millions over ethics violation. In real time, MSNBC followed with, "She wrote a protocol. Now it writes the rules." Even Fox News, despite its typical tone, couldn't ignore the numbers. 22.5 M frozen, 6 flights canceled, all because one woman said no. Nadira never gave a press statement. She let the system speak. By day's end, 3 major airline CEOs had booked emergency flights to Washington. This time, not to lobby, but to listen. The next morning, a closed-door roundtable took place inside the FAA's Federal Strategy Conference Room. At one side, the CEOs of 5 major carriers, fidgeting, tense. At the other, Nadira Cole, Clarice, Pamela, and 2 ethics compliance officers now embedded in FAA operations. The CEO of Sky Nova leaned in first. This system, Sky Hold, Sky Dignity, it's brutal. Nadira didn't flinch. No, it's honest. You're disrupting hundreds of millions in flight schedules. I'm correcting decades of silent discrimination. Another exec from Aero South tried a softer angle. Can we work toward a phased rollout? You've had phases. 5 years ago, we offered ethics dashboards. You ignored them. Now, it's not a suggestion. It's a condition. The room fell silent. Pamela added, "Let's be real. This isn't about software. It's about accountability, and you're just not used to it being public." Clarice pushed the binder across the table. "Each of you now has 7 days to submit your internal training data and historical complaints for external audit. Refuse, and your passenger clearance scores go public." One of the execs hissed under his breath, "This is blackmail." "No," Nadira said, looking him square in the eye. "This is karma, with a database." 3 days later, something unprecedented happened. 4 airport unions and 2 airline investor groups issued a joint statement. "We stand in support of the Sky Dignity Protocol. Ethical compliance is no longer optional. It's the cost of public trust." For the first time in aviation history, investors were backing a system that prioritized passengers over margins. That evening, Nadira received a private message from the Acting Secretary of Transportation. "When you're ready to lead the Ethics Advisory Council permanently, the door's open." She replied simply, "Let me finish this audit first." By the end of the week, Sky Dignity had become more than a protocol. It had become a new baseline. Airports across the country began hanging signs not with logos, but with ethics scores. Passengers started using apps to view terminal ratings before booking. Flight attendants who had been afraid to report supervisors were now protected by live compliance tools. And behind all of it, Nadira kept moving silently through airports, watching, logging, adjusting, not as a figurehead, as a systems architect, one whose blueprint finally forced a broken machine to evolve. The morning was cold but clear when Savannah Coastal Airport unveiled its new sign. Not a logo, not a brand, just 5 bold words lit up above the main terminal entrance. Ethics score, 98, compliant. Below it, a plaque read, "This terminal is certified under the Sky Dignity Protocol, prioritizing fairness, safety, and human dignity in every interaction." Most travelers walked past without thinking, but for some, especially those who'd felt the system, it meant everything. One man stopped, took a photo, and nodded. His daughter had once been denied pre-boarding because she used a feeding tube. Another woman whispered, "About time," before pushing her elderly mother's wheelchair through the gate. Inside, Dr. Nadira Cole stood quietly by the glass wall near Terminal B. No entourage, no security, no cameras. Just her, and the place where it all began. The same airport where she'd been mocked and dismissed. The same gate where they told her to wait outside. But today, there was no sarcasm. The woman working the desk glanced up at her and smiled. Not the tight fake smile of someone masking contempt, but one of recognition and respect. "Good morning, Dr. Cole," she said gently. "Would you like a seat in the lounge while we prepare the announcement?" Nadira shook her head. "I'm fine right here, just watching." The woman hesitated. "I wanted to say thank you. I used to work under someone who, well, let's just say If this system had existed back then, I wouldn't have gone home crying so many nights. Nadira offered a small nod. Then it's working. At exactly 9 o'clock a.m., the airport speakers clicked on. Good morning. Savannah Coastal Airport proudly announces the successful integration of the Sky Dignity Protocol into all operations. Joining 142 certified locations nationwide, we now lead the Southeast region in ethical compliance and accountability. Applause echoed through the concourse. A few passengers clapped. Some paused mid-stride. And then the CEO of Union Air, the very airline whose crew had once told Nadira she didn't belong, stepped up to the podium. He cleared his throat. I'm not proud of how this story began, but I am proud of what it forced us to face. Thanks to Dr. Nadira Cole, we didn't just improve service, we changed what service means. He turned slightly toward her. She didn't shame us. She made us better, and she made us look in the mirror. Nadira didn't step forward. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Instead, she handed a folder to Pamela, who took the mic. This is not a finish line, Pamela said. It's a checkpoint. Every month, every terminal, every crew will be audited. By AI, by humans, by passengers themselves. Dignity isn't a campaign, it's a constant. Behind her, a large screen lit up with the live Sky Grid ethics map. Green zones pulsed across the country, a visual heartbeat of a system Nadira once built in secret, in a basement in Charlotte. Now it powered an industry. After the event, Clarisse found Nadira sitting alone near the old gate where the incident had happened. You okay? Nadira didn't answer right away. She was watching a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, helping her grandmother check in. The girl waved to the gate agent. The agent waved back. No sigh, no side-eye, no tension, just mutual kindness. Do you think they know? Nadira asked softly. Who? The staff? No, the girl, the grandmother. Do you think they feel the system protecting them? Clarisse tilted her head. Maybe not, but maybe they don't need to feel it. Maybe the fact that they're not being hurt is the system. Later that evening, Nadira flew home. Coach seat, middle row, no fanfare. And when a tired young mother next to her apologized for her toddler kicking Nadira's foot for the 5th time, Nadira just smiled and said, "It's fine." Because it was. No one judged her for being in coach. No one asked if she was in the wrong section. No one said, "You people," or "This isn't for you." And when the flight attendant came by with water, she smiled, genuinely, and said, "Thank you for your work." Nadira took a deep breath and looked out the window. The system was holding. And for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself something rare. Not control, not strategy, but peace. The Senate floor was quieter than usual. No shouting, no finger pointing, just a single voice being heard. Dr. Nadira Cole, seated confidently at the witness table, adjusted the mic. The seal of the United States Senate gleamed behind her. C-SPAN was broadcasting live. So were 5 major news networks. Social media feeds were filled with the words, "Testifying today, the woman who froze $780 million in aviation." She didn't flinch at the cameras. She wasn't here for fame. She was here for something else. Institutional memory. A senator from Texas leaned in. "Dr. Cole, let me be direct. Some of our constituents, especially in the airline sector, say this Sky Dignity Protocol gives too much power to one person. To you." Nadira met his gaze without blinking. "It doesn't give power to me, Senator. It gives protection to people who've had none. I just built the infrastructure." The room shifted. A few senators murmured. Her calm tone made it impossible to attack her without looking petty. Senator Warren from Massachusetts smiled faintly and said, "Let's not forget, she was dismissed at her own airport." Nadira nodded. "And I didn't retaliate with anger. I responded with a system. Clarice and Pamela sat behind her, stone still. On the desk in front of Nadira was a small stack of pages, testimonials from passengers, whistleblowers, and flight crew members. Names redacted, but stories raw. A boy with autism told his mother, "The new flight lady didn't yell at me. She smiled." A disabled veteran wrote, "I didn't need to explain my injury to board early. The system already knew." A flight attendant finally reported a racist supervisor and was protected by the audit flag. Nadira held the paper up. "This isn't a software update. It's a moral correction, one overdue by decades." By the time she finished, even her critics sat in silence. Then came the vote. Not on her, but on a historic resolution. The Sky Dignity Ethics Compliance Mandate, a federal charter making passenger dignity protocols mandatory for all commercial aviation partners. It passed, 22-1. The only senator who voted against it did so quietly and later issued a statement. "I regret not listening more closely." As she walked out of the Capitol, Nadira didn't stop for interviews. Instead, she handed her visitor badge to a young black girl standing with her school group. The child had watched her entire testimony. "Was that scary?" the girl asked. Nadira smiled. "Only the first minute." "Why'd you do it?" Nadira paused. "Because someone once told me I didn't belong, and I needed to prove that we do." The girl nodded like she understood. And in that moment, Nadira realized the system wasn't just software, it was a signal. And someone, somewhere, would carry it forward. 6 months later, the departure boards at JFK, LAX, O'Hare, and 138 other airports no longer just showed flight numbers and gates. They showed something new, subtle, but revolutionary. Ethics status. Compliant live protocol. Sky Dignity active. Most travelers barely noticed. But for the ones who had been overlooked, mistreated, or humiliated, it changed everything. They saw themselves in the system now, not as exceptions, but as expectations. Inside Charlotte International, a mother traveling alone with her son, a boy with cerebral palsy, was greeted by a smiling gate agent. "We've got a pre-board lane just for you," she said. The mother's eyes widened. "We didn't request anything." The agent nodded toward a tablet. "You didn't need to. The system already did." In the flight crew lounge, a Latina flight attendant read an internal memo. "Supervisors caught manipulating seat assignments based on appearance will trigger immediate review under Clause 4 of the Sky Dignity Charter." She smiled to herself. Finally, policy had teeth. And in first class on a Boston-bound flight, an older black man in a tailored tan suit watched a white businessman stand to offer him help with his bag. Not out of pity, but out of simple decency. Small shifts, but everywhere. Meanwhile, Nadira sat quietly in a small airport cafe in DC, sipping coffee. No badge, no title on display. Clarice sat across from her, scrolling headlines. FAA confirms Sky Dignity Charter now standard across U.S. terminals. Passenger Dignity Protocol expands to Canadian and EU routes. Airline stocks recover after early ethics shocks. "You ever think about retiring?" Clarice asked. Nadira smirked. "I'm not done." "What's next?" Nadira looked out the window as a crew helped an elderly woman board early. Not rushed, not dismissed. "Next," she said softly, "I build systems people don't even know they need yet." She stood, leaving her coffee half full. "But when they do, it'll already be there, waiting." A week later, a new charter flight from Nairobi landed at JFK. A child in a wheelchair disembarked first, his name already checked into the system, his accommodations pre-registered. He beamed as he rolled into the terminal under the green-lit sign. "Passenger dignity starts here." No one had to explain it to him. He just knew, because someone had made sure the sky was safe for everyone. And her name was Nadira Cole. Have you ever been made to feel like you didn't belong? Just because of how you look, talk, or move? Or maybe someone stood up for you quietly, in a way that changed everything. Tell us where you're watching from, and let us know in the comments. If you could build one system to protect dignity, what would it be? Your voice matters. Someone out there might need to read exactly what you share today.